Frank immediately withdrew his sword and Kevin relaxed his fist. Professor Murdoch walked over to them and chastised Frank. "Do you think it's right to bully students? We're supposed to protect them." "It's not what it looks like, Professor Murdoch. Kevin wanted to do some extra training during our break, so I was just testing him," Frank tried to explain. "These students just got here a few days ago. How could you be testing them when they haven't even learned the basics?" Professor Murdoch glared. Everyone on the faculty knew that Frank was a player, but he had some relatives who had pretty good connections and his martial arts skills were pretty good, so they put up with a lot of his nonsense. "We were just messing around, Professor. Everything's under control." Frank kept smiling the whole time he was talking, but he was acting a lot less arrogant now that Professor Murdoch was there. "Instructor Carter, I don't care if you're kidding around or not. If you hurt any of this school's students, you'll answer for it," Professor Murdoch explained in no uncertain terms. Lily and Phoebe both heaved a sigh of relief. Now that Professor Murdoch was there, they knew that Frank wouldn't dare to try anything else. Otherwise, Kevin would definitely be in big trouble right now. "Of course, Professor Murdoch. I'd never let things get out of hand. Just ask the students," Frank replied with his fake smile. He was trying to make it look like he was being falsely accused. Blair immediately stood up for his teacher. "Professor Murdoch, this is all a big misunderstanding. Kevin was being very rude and he just needed to learn a lesson." As he spoke, Blair made sure that he sneered at Kevin. He thought to himself, "You're so lucky you got out of this, you loser." Then Lionel also piped up. "Don't be too hard on Mr. Carter. How could an instructor at this school possibly be bullying students?" "That's right. He was teaching us sword skills just now. The lesson was to practice hard and try to make positive contributions to society as soon as we can," Luther agreed. Kevin almost laughed out loud when he heard these guys. Lionel and Luther were such good liars. They sounded completely sincere. Phoebe and Lily were even angrier than Kevin by now. They couldn't understand how these guys could tell such bald-faced lies. Professor Murdoch looked at them all one by one. Finally, her gaze stopped on Kevin. "Come with me. I've got something to tell you," she requested. She knew just how powerful Kevin was and that Frank wouldn't stand a chance against him, so it was entirely possible that Kevin had wised off to him since he wasn't afraid. When they got to Professor Murdoch's office, she informed him, "You've earned your reward." Kevin wasn't sure what she was talking about and asked her, "What reward?" "Don't you remember what I told you in class? The high donor for the fundraiser receives a reward from the school," Professor Murdoch explained. Then she glanced at Kevin and asked him, "Don't you want it?" "Of course I'm interested, Professor, but I don't know what it is," Kevin replied frankly. "Since it's coming from the school, it must be something good, right? Is the reward some kind of advanced technique or a medicinal pill with superhuman effects?" "An advanced technique or a medicinal pill? Don't forget that this is a school, so your reward will be a little more academic," Professor Murdoch reminded him. "Your reward will be to have access to the library's Special Collections Annex. You can choose any book you like and check it out." "What kind of reward is that?" Kevin was stunned. He looked out at Professor Murdoch's office window and could see the library. Any student could get into the building if they wanted. "Don't you like the reward?" Professor Murdoch could tell what Kevin was thinking with just a glance. "I just don't see what's so special about this," Kevin replied dejectedly. "It sounds like you really haven't read through the school's regulations," she scowled. "Let me be frank with you. The books in special collections from the 1st to the 10th floor are actually just copies of the original editions. There's a vast amount of information in them, and you can find out just about anything you need to know. But students are strictly forbidden to take any of the books in the library," she added. "But what's the use of it for me to check out a single book?" Kevin couldn't help but ask. "Anyway, as long as the other students can enter special collections too, they can read whatever they want." "Just hear me out," Professor Murdoch answered bluntly. The books from the 11th to the 13th floor are extremely rare. They're the only copies in existence. I myself don't even know what's contained in them." "What? You don't even know?" Kevin was astonished. "Do you think that just anyone is allowed to go up to the top floors?" Professor Murdoch asked him as she slowly walked over to the window and showed him the imposing structure. Then she said very seriously, "The top 3 floors are strictly guarded. If you don't have permission, you can't even get up there. And if anyone were to sneak in, they'd be severely punished. I was only allowed access to the 11th floor when I first joined the faculty. The administration let me see the top 2 floors, but I wasn't permitted to touch anything," she revealed. Then she turned around and looked Kevin in the eyes. "So now do you understand how important this reward is?" Kevin's eyes widened when he heard that. "Do you mean I can enter the top 3 floors?" "That's right. You can go anywhere from the 11th to the 13th floors, and you can stay there for 10 hours. Professor Murdoch explained with just a hint of jealousy. What Kevin didn't know was that when Professor Murdoch went to the 11th floor, she was only allowed to stay there for an hour. "Well, when you put it that way, my donation was worth it," Kevin joked. But Professor Murdoch still wasn't sure about Kevin's enormous donation to the fundraiser. How could he have had that much money to throw around? She was so curious that she looked into it and found out that Lily had only donated $25,000. Compared to the millions that Kevin had donated, it was just a drop in the bucket. Seeing the excitement in Kevin's eyes, Professor Murdoch decided to throw some cold water on his ambitions. "Don't be too optimistic about the top floor. The books on that level are only for the most advanced experts. Ordinary people, even excellent students, aren't ready for them. So don't be greedy," she advised. "Choose a book that you're ready to read and can benefit from it for the rest of your life. That would be much more sensible than choosing something that you're not ready to grasp." "Are they really that difficult?" Kevin frowned slightly. "You'll know when the time comes. I'll take you over there right now to prevent any misunderstanding with the guards," Professor Murdoch offered as she gestured toward the door. A few minutes later, they bumped into Penny. "I'm sorry, Penny. Professor Murdoch and I have some things to deal with, so I'm afraid I'll have to take a rain check on our dinner," Kevin explained apologetically. "That's okay. Just let me know when you have the time," Penny replied. She was still acting a little aloof, but Kevin's willingness to put off their dinner only made her even more interested in him.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.